So, Wizard of Oz. You know it, you love it, it really needs no introduction. Whether you know it from the 1939 film, Wicked, Baum's books, various cartoons, or even maybe you have the elite ball knowledge of the 1902 musical. Whatever way you know about Oz, the bottom line is you know it. I've recently gotten into Wizard of Oz after seeing bunnies with knives animatics. Sounds kinda dumb to say. 'Cause recently gotten into Wizard of Oz, what am I, 12? But anyway, I've read through to The Lost Princess of Oz, Skipping Patchwork Girl of Oz, TikTok of Oz, Rinkadink of Oz, and Road to Oz, but I'll probably go back to read them. This video isn't the first thing I've made regarding Oz. You may have seen my 2 animatics, or if you've been to AO3 you could have seen my Checks Notes, 62,000 word fanfic. But I decided in honor of my recent Wizard of Oz hyperfixation, I thought I'd show it love the way I personally do, rewriting its lore and story to my liking. Not that I have anything against Baum's books, this is just me using my imagination and changing the characters a bit. So this is Duchess, and let's get into it. Obviously, we've got to start with Dorothy. But first we've got to set the scene and the background. What makes this different from Baum's books? Well, before Dorothy landed, both Locusta and Glinda had mysteriously disappeared. Oh, spooky. This led to both Wicked Witches as well as Mombi expanding their power and leaving the Emerald City the only safe space. Thus is where I've gotten the name of this AU, the Wicked Reign of Oz. I know this is a little basic or perhaps a bit cringy, but I like it. It fits th now no one has taken over the South as Glinda's all-female army, from the books, protect the South, but they don't really let anyone in. One other thing that this AU differs from the books is that Dorothy's house didn't land on the Wicked Witch of the East. Yeah, she's still alive. Until she dies. Don't worry, she will eventually get crushed by the house, but not yet. I'll talk about the witches probably in a part 2, but let's continue with Dorothy. She is 12 in this. This may sound like not huge news, but like, she was definitely 8 or something in the book. Have you seen those illustrations? That was not a 12-year-old. For a while I was considering maybe having Aunt Em and Uncle Henry to have passed to represent some of the darker themes the AU has, but I think I'm going to decide against that. Because without that, Dorothy doesn't have much reason to get back to Kansas. So, what happens when Dorothy's house didn't land on the witch? Well, Dorothy is captured and brought to the Wicked Witch of East, who I'll refer as Mistress East instead of Wicked Witch of the East for simplicity's sake. Just for a frame of reference, Mistress East is more like the Ursula or lone shark type of wicked, unlike her sister, who is almost comedically evil. Dorothy does eventually manage to escape from Mistress East with the help of the Tin Woodman who stole and snuck her some food, Mistress East's silver slippers, and her small supply of powder of life. After her escape, most of it is the same, with Dorothy helping the Scarecrow and following the yellow brick road to the Emerald City. The Emerald City is going to have a lot of characters from throughout the different books. Nimmy, Chopfit, Kuklip, Tip, who those educated know is actually Ozma, Ojo, Scraps, and many more people outside of the Emerald City. Woot, Polychrome, Captain Fighter, etc. As you can see, she looks the same as almost everyone else designs her, with the brown braids and blue gingham dress. I gave her slightly tan skin due to her time working on the farm. She's also a little tall for being her age, though that doesn't measure up to much compared to the mostly Munchkin cast. One little detail I like that you may not have noticed is that the heels of the silver slipper are the shape of an E. Because, you know, the Wicked Witch of the East. And before we move on, obviously Toto is here, and as a neat little thing, like in the later books Toto can talk, he just doesn't like to. Oh, you may have noticed Redesign 2.0. This is because I've been posting this stuff on my Pinterest, but those designs and lore are slightly outdated now, and this gives a clean final design. Now, speaking of the Scarecrow, why don't I talk about him next? There isn't much to say, he's the Scarecrow. He's the lovable fool who isn't as brainless as he thinks. 2 days old when he joins Dorothy, he acts as both a friend and even parental figure for her as they travel the yellow brick road. He asks a lot of questions because he doesn't know anything about the world. Obviously, this isn't a sign of brainlessness, but he takes it as that. He's smarter than he or anyone else thinks. Most of his personal problems begin once he gets to the Emerald City, as most of the Emerald City citizens don't really like him. This is because they assume he was brought to life by powder of life, a very scarce and hard to make magical substance, and then after this he doesn't really do his job. Most Oceans, especially Emeraldos, have very strict ideas of what living objects should do. The social hierarchy is the humanoids, munchkins, gillikins, quadlings, winkies, followed by less humanoids, hammerheads, fuddles, etc. Then is living objects, which includes the curl hair stuffed bears and Utentia along with regular living objects. They believe living objects have a specific purpose, and they need to complete that. They also don't appreciate how the Scarecrow doesn't know anything. Now obviously, he wasn't brought to life by powder of life, and it wasn't his fault the farmers didn't give him brains, because he was never meant to be alive. So why was he alive? I don't know. Baum didn't know. I don't think the Scarecrow was ever given a proper reason to be alive. He just was alive and started gaining senses as they were painted on. There was a later book by Ruth Plumley Johnson, The Royal Book of Oz, which had the Scarecrow be a reincarnation of the Emperor from the Silver Islands. And, I read some of that book, and my only thought during that brief few chapters was, this gotta be racist. So I'm not using that. I was considering having Dorothy use the powder of life and bring the Scarecrow to life, but I'm not sure. I'll keep it vague. It's what Baum would have wanted. Where he differs the most is probably his design. He's got this long hair stuff. Is it practical? No. But it does add a bit to his stoner look. He does look a little high, and it was intentional. His looks add to people underestimating him and thinking he's brainless. I did get the lazy eyes and rope arms from someone else's design, but it was reposted on Pinterest without credit, so I can't credit the guy. Fun fact, I actually have a lazy eye. For his clothing it's mostly blue because he's from Munchkinland. He has orange sewed patches on the clothing because the farmer didn't want to waste good blue fabric to fix up the holes for your average Scarecrow. I've also added a little thing where the Scarecrow learns words as he goes along. Like when he first meets Dorothy, he only knows the words he heard the farmers and Crow say, but he does pick up on words and their meaning after hearing them for the first time. This is how living objects usually work, unless specifically given brains to know words beforehand. Now I'll do the Tin Woodman next, since he has had one of the more drastic changes and has the longest part. And the biggest difference is that he is under the forceful servitude of Mistress East. I think it'd be better if I started at the beginning of his story, since I think most people that only know Wicked don't know the actual story of the Tin Woodman. So Nick Chopper, not Bach, that's a different guy, was a Munchkin Woodman. One day he fell in love with Nimmy Amy. She loved him too, but was a servant to Mistress East. She agreed to marry him if he built her a house so that she may get away. So Nick got to work, but Mistress East didn't want to get married. Now originally Nimmy didn't work for Mistress East. She worked for some old woman, and the old woman bargained with Mistress East to curse Nick's axe so that they won't get married. In my version, Mistress East did this because she was jealous. I'm taking some inspiration from Nessa for this made her infatuated with Nick, like how Nessa was with Bach, and she didn't want Nick to marry Nimmy. Now I can't blame her for wanting Nick. He's a certified baddie. He's a woodman, so he's got a strong body. He's also the nicest person you'll ever meet, willing to sacrifice his own humanity to free the woman he loved. He also can play a mean tune on the piccolo. I mean, that's literally why his name was Niccolo in the 1902 musical. Yeah, Nick is short for Niccolo, not Nicholas. In the 1902 musical anyway, though the songs were written by Baum. The song's called Niccolo's Piccolo, by the way, if you're interested. So, she cursed his axe to cut him apart limb by limb. First his legs, then his arms, then his head, and finally his torso. How did he survive cutting his head off? I have no idea. His head is still alive, by the way, and it's not the first time that severed heads can live or even share memories. See Langway dear. If you think that's weird, just wait till I tell you about Chopfit in part 3 or something. Mistress East's whole plan was that she hoped Nimmy would stop loving Nick if he was this inhuman tin thing. Little did she know Nimmy actually has a thing for tin. Not kidding. She thought both Nick and Fighter were hotter when they were made of tin. In fact, she only agreed to marry Fighter once he was entirely made about tin, so yeah. That plan didn't work out the way Mistress East hoped, but it did end up working in a different way. Clip, the tinsmith that fixed Nick, couldn't give Nick his heart back because, well, he was made out of tin. There was no proper use he could do with a flesh heart. And now this is where we get into where my AU differs for the Tin Woodman. Nick felt like he was incapable of loving Nimmy like he had. Now the whole original point of the first book was that they had what they needed all along, so the Tin Woodman never actually lost his heart. I just think he naturally fell out of love because he had more to focus on. Like, oh, I don't know, his entire body being chopped to pieces and then being replaced by tin, but that's just a guess. He also felt like he wouldn't be able to properly free Nimmy or be the husband he felt she deserved, so that's when he went to Mistress East. He was desperate for any way to free Nimmy. He went to bargain with Mistress East, who only asked for his physical heart, and in exchange, he got it from Clip and gave it to Mistress East, who used her enchantment magic on it. She did free Nimmy, but now with Tin Woodman's enchanted heart, he had to do what she said. She couldn't make him love her, but she didn't need that. She just needed so he couldn't love anyone else. She needed him to belong to her and her alone. He's her personal one-man army, stronger than any meat soldier, doesn't need to sleep, eat, only needing the occasional oiling. That's about it for the backstory for the Tin Woodman. Deaf the longest, but he has some of the most fleshed-out lore, not counting Nimmy, Tin Soldier, and Chopfit. Design-wise, you know he's made out of tin. I made him sharper and more armor-looking. His body is heart-shaped, and I gave him a gold funnel hat like the Russian knockoff Tin Man. Now this leaves only the Cowardly Lion. He's right beside Scarecrow in story stuff, but he's pretty basic. Here he's already king of the beasts. Well, was. Due to the major animal hideout being in Quadling Country, they didn't deal with the adverse effects of the Wicked Witch takeover. But due to his fear and cowardice, he didn't let refugees in case they may be spies or even Mumbai, who was skilled in transformation magic. It got so bad and he got so reclusive he'd only speak to his advisors. This made him heavily disliked among his subjects. He was a lion meant to rule them bravely, and so he was kicked out. He was practically driven out of Quadling Country and found his new home deep in the Munchkinland forests, where he is almost never seen. He attacks the occasional munchkin that passes through the forest or along the yellow brick road, but only them or small animals. This has made many people dislike and distrust animals, leading to hunting or driving out of animal communities. Not even the Emerald City will accept them. Design-wise, he's a lion. So, tan fur and red mane. He is going a little gray from stress. He still wears his old crown, but it is joined by a red bow. I gave his face and hands and face lighter for coloration. He's larger than a lion from outside of Oz, but part of that is because he stands up on his hind legs. He doesn't do this in the books, but Bertlar did, and I decided to use it. Animals can do either 2 legs or 4. It doesn't bother or affect them much. And that's about it. For what I plan to do with this, I will definitely make an animatic, maybe 2. I want to make like a little comic thing series and post it on AO3, but that's gonna take a lot of time and work. Part 2 ought to be the witches. I haven't drawn Mumbai yet, but I have designed the other 4 important witches, so there's that. Part 3 and Proly 4 will be various characters and emeraldos. That term is for Emerald City citizens, by the way. I stole that from Lost in Oz. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Be sure to check out my Pinterest if you want to see the other character stuff before I make a video about it. See ya!